All right, good afternoon, guys. We are happy to welcome you for our webinar today on Dutch experience in circular architecture, the country who is definitely a pioneer in this area. And I am pleased and honored that today we have such a renowned professionals from this area as Architectancy and Space and Matter, represented by Hans Hamming and Kamila Glodowska and Sasha Hlasu. And I will not be so happy without the support of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Kiev, who are also happy to contribute to the green and circular reconstruction of Ukraine. And today we have with us the second secretary of the Economic Department of the Embassy, Mark Heemskerk. And I would like him to start with the short intro word. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you, and thank you so much to Rethink for organizing today's event. Last weekend, people from all around the world commemorated the 2-year mark of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. For Ukraine, it's been 2 more years of fighting for freedom in a war that has covered already well over 10 years of Ukraine's modern history. As the war continues to unfold, the level of destruction across the country also keeps on growing. But the people of Ukraine, with the support of many international professionals, including from the Netherlands, are working hard on plans for Ukraine's reconstruction. In these efforts, it's essential that they seek to apply the principles of circularity, aiming to mitigate environmental degradation and foster resilience. In that regard, embracing circular architecture can offer a holistic solution that addresses both the immediate needs for reconstruction and the long-term goals of sustainability. By incorporating the principles of circularity in the reconstruction projects, such as using locally sourced materials, designing for disassembly, and implementing renewable energy systems, Ukraine can rebuild its cities and towns in a more sustainable and resilient manner. Moreover, circular architecture promotes economic development and social inclusion by creating opportunities for local industries, skilled labor, and community engagement. By giving priority to local sourcing of materials and labor, circular building projects can stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and empower local communities. Furthermore, involving residents in the design and the implementation of rebuilding projects fosters a sense of ownership and pride, strengthening the social cohesion and community bonds in the face of adversity. In the Netherlands, we have gained a lot of experience in applying these principles of circularity while working with challenges in this field. And today, our renowned experts would like to share their knowledge with you. We believe that circular architecture can provide a pathway for rebuilding communities, revitalizing urban spaces, and promoting environmental resilience. By embracing principles of resource efficiency, waste reduction, and community engagement, Ukraine can rebuild its cities and towns in a more sustainable and resilient way, laying the foundation for a brighter and more sustainable future for generations to come. So thank you very much, and I would like to pass the floor now to our experts.
And thank you very much, Mark, for your kind words and support. Guys, before we move on, I will just make a small announcement for Ukrainian participants in Ukrainian. Друзі, хто бере участь та не розуміє англійської мови, у нас є переклад синхронний. Внизу ви можете обрати вкладку «Переклад», «Interpretation» з глобусиком під екраном і обрати там українську мову для звуку. Тому, якщо вам так зручніше, будь ласочка. А ми продовжуємо. Okay, guys, thank you so much. And I, without further ado, give the floor to Hans Hamming and Kamila Glodowska from Architectancy. Thank you very much, and please.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you so much for inviting us. It is really an honor for us to speak in this webinar. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Just to check, are you seeing my screen, Roman?
Yes, we do.
Thanks. Okay. Again, thanks for inviting. We will start with introducing ourselves and hopefully inspire you with a few examples of our projects in the Netherlands, but also abroad. And we will also explain to you why we are doing these circular projects. So we are both working at the Architectency, which is an architectural office in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. We are with approximately 60 colleagues. We provide full service as architects, and we work in the range from urban design to architecture until interior design. We work on offices, apartments, and public buildings, and we work in the Netherlands and abroad.
My name is Kamila Głodowska. I'm an architect and I'm also a member of the circularity team. That's an internal group run by Hans, within which we try to share and gain knowledge about circularity.
Yeah, my name is Hans Hamming. I'm associate architect at the Architectency and working on generally on large complex projects, and I think now almost full time on circular projects. We are a bit known for works like this, which is a swimming pool that we designed a couple of years ago in Amsterdam, which was at that time the most energy sufficient swimming pool in the Netherlands. And we are also known for projects like this, large housing projects. And to tell you a little secret, the picture on the right is the view that we have right now. And we are also currently working on the renovation of the Dutch Parliament buildings in The Hague, and Camilla will tell something more about this later. But we are also doing, these were more or less conventional projects, if I may say so, but we have been working on circular projects from 2016 until now, and it started in 2017 with a project called Circle, a pavilion building for a Dutch bank in Amsterdam. And then also soon after that, we started on conversion of an office building. On the bottom left is a building for the Dutch government for the European GPS system called Galileo, a building in the west of the Netherlands. And on the bottom right, a conversion of a large office building in Amsterdam, improving the energy performance enormously. And these are also current circular projects, a bicycle parking building in Eindhoven, recently finished laboratory building in Amsterdam, and I'm still working on the student rowing club in Delft, and I'm also working now on another bicycle parking building in Amersfoort in the center of Netherlands. Circularity in our office is a bit scaling up, as it were. We are also currently working on two quite large housing projects, one in Amsterdam, 223 apartments, final design stage, and the other one is a project in the east of Netherlands in Nijmegen with 400 apartments, 120 meter high, and we are in preliminary design stage. Roman warned me that you know about circularity quite a lot, but this is only to state our definition and what we understand of circularity. So, of course, it started in 1968 when, for the very first time, we were able to see our own Earth as a whole. And after that, we realized this is what we have. This is the only Earth that we have with all its resources. This is what we have to be very careful with. So, and this is generally the definition that we use. This is the original definition of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who invented the term circular economy. So it is about minimizing energy use, CO2 footprint, use non-toxic materials, extend the lifespan of the scarce materials. And we also use this definition of Dutch group CB23, which states that the goal of circularity is to protect the resources. Therefore, protect the materials on this planet, the environment, and the existing value. And in our sector is, I mean with that, the existing buildings. And, and the last item, we notice in our day-to-day work that we work more and more with upgrading and conversion of existing buildings. And we do that in the Netherlands, but also we were asked 2 years ago by big Japanese developer and contractor to give circular advice on the redevelopment of these 2 buildings. The one on the left will be replaced with a volume at the same size, but the building on the right is going to be replaced by a 200-meter high tower. And still this client wants to be as circular as possible. It started for us in 2016 with the design of a circle, and soon after that we understood that circularity is not a hype that's going to disappear, but it's going to stay. It's also not an ideology, it's not something that you can discuss. We consider it as a fact. This is something that you simply have to do as an architect. And from 2018 to 2022, we were very happy to work on more small-scale circular projects, but recently, from 2022 onwards, it is scaling up for us, and it is very soon becoming the new normal for us. I mean, every project that we have now on the drawing board, which whatever it is, small or large, it is circular, because the regulations that are coming in the Netherlands soon are that strict that these projects simply are going to be circular. And this is a kind of overview of the projects that we are doing. And 1/3 of these projects are really circular. But I think these figures were of a month ago, and I think now the percentage is 35 or 40. It is changing rapidly. And why is it important in the Netherlands? The Netherlands is a small country, but we are densely populated. We have actually very few resources in terms of building materials. For instance, we do not have that many forests where we can use the wood for building. And because it is so densely populated and densely used, it is quite a vulnerable environment. So the history of building in a sustainable or circular way is such that in the previous century, 1996, the government started with requirements for energy performance. And then in 2008 and 12, they upgraded the regulations. The performance had to be much more strict. And a couple of years ago, the government installed the circularity performance regulation called MPG. And that is something that you have to meet. This is a requirement that you have to meet if you apply for a building permission. And simply the MPG is the environmental performance of a certain material times the gross floor area of your building divided by the lifespan of the building. And the lifespan of buildings is predetermined. Of a housing project, it is 75 years. And for office building, for instance, it is 50 years. And this is the kind of standard measurement to quantify circularity in the Netherlands. And this number, this figure is really necessary because circularity is, to my opinion, it is a system change. It is not only designing in a different way, but it is also the government that makes new building regulations like the MPG. It is also the client that hopefully thinks a lot about the long-term business case and not only about the quick win. Investors need to take care of a certain percentage of their portfolio being circular, and that's actually happening on our workflow at the moment. We get messages, requests from investors, can this project be more circular? The contractor have to work in a slightly different way. They have to deal with the use of used materials, for instance, etc., etc. All the chains in the building chain, all the parts in the building chain, they have to act in a slightly different way. And that's why implementing circularity in building is quite complicated. And I think it is happening much too slow, but actually, on the other hand, if you know how complicated it is also quite happening quite fast. And number 10 for us is really interesting, that these are parties that are specialized in disassembly of buildings. So the expertise of and knowledge of demolition parties, or as we call them now, urban miners or harvesters of building materials, their expertise is of great value to us, and we collaborate with them quite strongly. The first circular project that I worked on was Circle in the business district of Amsterdam. It was one of the first circular buildings in the Netherlands, and it was very interesting process because the client, the contractor, and we as architects, we had to find our way how to design and to build in a circular way. We had basically no examples of circular projects of this scale. And the building for the Dutch bank ABN AMRO consists of a few floors. In the basement, there is a meeting space. On the ground, in the basement, there is a meeting spaces. On the ground floor, multifunctional space and a restaurant. And on the first floor, where we are now, is a generous roof terrace. Here you can see the section. The roof terrace is accessible 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. The bank asked us to make the most sustainable design ever, and we advised the client to make a circular design, and the client agreed to that. And one of the things that we did is to advise for a timber structure. So here you have the view of the interior of the building, and you see the timber structure, and it is made of locally sourced wood, which, as I explained before, is quite rare for the Netherlands. We don't have that many forests, but we have a few, and these are this is timber from a local forest, large timber it is. And this is a view of the basement of the building. And the situation in the Netherlands is such that the water table in the ground is very high. So there is quite a lot of pressure on the walls of a basement. We were forced to make these out of concrete. And we didn't favor this material because concrete has a very large CO2 footprint because of the cement in the concrete, but we had to do it. We minimized the amount of concrete. We made as large holes in it as possible to allow for daylight and to allow for wooden, for timber floors, but we still had to use the concrete. And we, from the very beginning of this project, we tried to use used materials, but at that time, 2016, we couldn't find any. So we were looking for instance, used floor finish for the floor, but we couldn't find 1,200 square meters. But finally, eventually, we met this startup company, and they offered us some used windows. And at first glance, they didn't look attractive at all. They were painted on one side white, on the other side brown. They are quite dirty, damaged. The glass wasn't in it anymore. But I decided on the spot to like them and to work with them. And I proposed client to apply them in partition walls between public space and the meeting rooms. And it was a nice lesson for myself to see that it was very useful for me to do my very best to see the beauty of these used materials. And in the end, it is actually quite nice because they have so much extra character. So this was a nice architectural lesson for me. We also designed the building such that it could be easily changed, and partition walls also could be changed easily, but also the pipes and ducts of the building surfaces. So we came up with this timber structure of wooden beams crisscrossing each other, being on top of each other. And we did that in such a way that we could weave, as it were, all the pipes and ducts in between the wooden beams. And you see this here. So you see pipes and ducts in between the beams. And it means that if you position them in this way, you don't have to drill big holes in these wooden beams, so that the beams are staying intact, and the chance therefore for reuse of them is much bigger than in the case where you have to drill big holes in them, etc. So these are still generic timber beams. And also all the pipes and ducts are accessible for maintenance and repair. And also the architectural implication is that yes, everything is visible, everything is clear, but it is also organized in a certain zone. It is organized in between those timber beams. The sad thing is a bit that, yes, we designed the building for disassembly. Say we did this 6 years ago, and the disassembly is actually already happening because the bank is moving to a different site. They sold the plot to an international developer, and they saw the opportunity to build a 60-meter high tower exactly on this spot, and that's what they're going to do. So we are in the process now of engineering the disassembly. And this webinar is a bit too early, but I think in half a year or in a year or so, I could tell you whether the disassembly really works. So I was, of course, very sad when I heard this news, but it will be also, I think, a good lesson for us, whether our design is really working or not. And the digital twin that we made of the building, in other words, the Revit model, but then added extra information to it, like who is the owner of this component, what is the expected lifespan of this certain component, and what is the technical condition of it. We added all this information to all the building parts, and we created a digital twin. So a 3D model on which you can click on the components and then find this kind of information. And it already worked in the process of engineering of the disassembly. It was already very helpful. Another project I would like to show you is a bicycle parking building that I designed in Eindhoven, a town in the southern part of the Netherlands, next to a railway station. And the Netherlands is quite a flat country, and we use bicycles a lot, and especially for commuting, to do the short trip from your home to the railway station. And you can see the problem here. People park their bikes everywhere, a bit anarchistic method. So this is kind of problem that needs to be solved. We need to provide for facility where you can park your bike. And in this case, the design was for a building for 5,000 bicycles. And I soon discovered that on the picture left, the site is going to replace in the near future with the picture on the right. There is new buildings planned on this site. Also, exactly where the bicycle building is going to be a high rise of 100 meters. So I proposed the client to make a temporary building such that it could be disassembled easily, and suddenly it was a circular building. And the bicycle building is also a warehouse for bicycles, so it has to be really, really functional. But at the same time, there are lots of possibilities to make it into a circular building. One of the clients is a Dutch railway company, and they had just started a program where they wanted to see if there were any possibilities of reusing parts of trains that were at the end of their lifespan. And they also asked me, as architect of the bicycle parking building, if I was interested to have a look at these trains that were going to be harvested. And I was immediately attracted by these train windows. And of course, we did some tests if it was easy to disassemble them. And as you can see, this one's not so easy, but we decided then to use other ones. And they were put apart for us, and we were able to use them to apply them into our design. So we designed and we detailed these windows such that they would be also detailed, that the disassembly would be quite easy in the future. And we propose to use them in the facade of the building. So the bicycle parking building has a facade partly made of these train windows. And we also proposed to use old pavement tiles for some brickwork. And we proposed to the client to use old rails for columns, as you can see here in the interior. And also for the floor, reuse concrete elements. I think for this building, we would reach enormously high percentages of reused components. So it was great fun to work on this project. And currently now we are working on a bit bigger circular project. I can't tell you the outcome yet. We are in the sketch design phase. We do our extremely, very, very, very best to make it as circular as possible, but it's not so easy. So it is a big project with 400 apartments, a lot of car parking spaces, serious bicycle parking in it, and other uses. Also integrated in the design, a roof park, and the building is 120 meters high. So this is a picture of the building in its context. It is next to train tracks, also near a railway station. And it consists of high-rise part and a low-rise. And on top of the low-rise is integrated a park. These are some renderings from the tender phase, and in the tender phase we already proposed for as many parts of the facade possible to apply reused materials. So this is a suggestion of using old all those glass houses for part of the facade. And this is an impression of the communal entrance of the high-rise building. We also try to make this high-rise building socially sustainable with communal spaces, not only on ground floor, but also higher up in the towers where people can meet and do things together. And we are currently working on trying to make it the top of the building in CLT structure, in a timber structure on 120 meter high. That's not so easy, but we do our very best to make it possible. As much as wood in the facades, if the regulations allow for it, and to use in the also in the public space as much used materials as possible. And we also try to design for disassembly. And to illustrate that, this is quite a nerdy, dry drawing. I understand this, but what I want to say with this picture is that we are currently working on trying to put all the pipes and ducts not in the concrete structure of the building, but in the cement top layer, so that in the future these pipes and ducts can be disassembled without having to demolish walls, etc. And also, we try to introduce to clients visible pipes and ducts. And that, maybe for us architects, that's really a small issue, but for client, it is a big issue. And we are having discussions with them. This is just to show you the day-to-day reality of circularity. This discussion about plastic pipes and ducts in whether in cement or in concrete. But it's great fun. But we are also working on sea legacy projects, old projects of the sea, try to upgrade them.
Thank you, Hans. So the projects that Hans presented are the new buildings, but we see the circularity also as transformation of the existing structures. The work of the architect and sea spans for more than 65 years, so it's no surprise that a lot of projects are actually coming back to us. They are in need of an upgrade after years of service. One of those projects is the renovation of Dutch House of Representatives in The Hague. As you see, it's quite a complex composition of buildings from different periods, from different architects. And the middle part is actually designed by P. de Bruin, who is the partner at our office. And the building was designed at the turn of 80s and 90s. And currently, due to technical and functional needs, it needs an upgrade. So the architect is responsible for renovating this part, the middle part, which we call building N. And we are also responsible for renovating of building H. And as you can see, the middle part serves as a connecting element, kind of a street where everyone meets. And it's the most public part of the whole complex. So our team, before starting the assignment, gathered a couple of important objectives that form the vision of the renovation. And of course, the primary objective was to improve the accessibility of the building and also the technical parts. The architects also wanted to respect the existing. So whenever possible, the materials will stay. The circular demolition will be applied. So whenever we remove something, it will find a new life either in a different part of the building or in a different project. And all the new materials are preferably bio-based or produced in circular way, and ideally also prepared to be reused in the future. And some simple examples which I can show you. So in some parts of this building N, there are acoustic ceilings, and they don't comply on the modern requirements in specific zones. So they will be taken out, but not thrown away simply. No, they will be replaced in other zones where the requirements for the acoustics are a bit lower. Another example how actually a new material can be created is the biopolymer. It's a sort of material that will be developed specifically for this project. So as you can see in this image, some parts of the facades are clayed with stone. And in order to improve the insulation of the walls, it needs to be removed. And of course, during that process, some stones might get damaged or they need to be cut because of some adjustments in the walls. And then in order to not waste this material, it will be harvested and transformed into a new material. So it will create some kind of a collage of old and new. Another project I would like to show you is the Office of Edge Technologies in west of Amsterdam. It's also something that we can call the sea legacy because it was designed between 60s, 70s by one of the predecessors of our office. And it's clearly inspired by structuralism. It consists of 7-story high towers in a form of octagonal, octagonal form. And in the middle of those towers, you can see a courtyard, which actually was not really used. And this is the building after the renovation. And as you can see, the exterior didn't change much. The facades were kept almost intact when it comes to rhythm and character of the building. So that's how we approach with respect towards the existing and the initial intentions of the designers. The thing that actually changed is the performance of the building. So the exchanged parts, like windows, they got higher quality glass, and the added courtyard also contributes enormously to the climate performance of the building. That's one of the old photos where you can see the courtyard, and also you will see a big difference. While the external walls that are facing the inner courtyard were kind of stripped to open up and to bring more daylight into the workplaces and kind of turn the building inwards towards the central atrium, which became a heart, a meeting point where people could meet spontaneously, intentionally, and also some extra circulation elements were added to stimulate movement and meeting. And the glazed roof was also inspired, kind of evolved naturally from the structural composition of the building. And one, like what Hans usually say, like it's hard to make fully circular building, but every project we make is a step forward and bring us to the next level. So we cannot say, okay, this is a fully circular building, but there are also some attempts done. And one of them is, for example, the brick that was developed with stone cycling, which incorporates parts of the demolished inner walls. And the last project that I would like to present to you is actually not our legacy. I mean, now it is because we redesign it, but the initial design was not designed by the sea. It was building from 90s, which, as you can see, was not really exciting, and it needed an upgrade due to new requirements for the office spaces. So the volume was topped up with 2 extra layers, and the building was perforated with 2 atriums to connect the floors and provide more daylight as well. The new floors are built with the use of timber bearing structure. That was actually a smart solution because there was no necessary changes needed for the existing structure. It could simply bear this extra load of lightweight construction. And here you can see the atrium that was created. On the left picture, it's from the lower floors, and on the right, from the upper floors, which I like those comparisons as well. You can see the connection between the floors, but also how the space changes just by simply adding more biomaterials like wood. It's much more friendly and inviting. And another example of thinking differently about function of materials. So in the existing building, we also opened up the facades to bring more daylight, which required cutting the parapet of the building. And also by removing the existing stone, it was harvested and reused as a floor. So that's also sometimes what we saw in bicycle parking, for example, something that has different function originally can completely change and serve a different purpose, like, for example, the railways or, yeah. And I give the floor back to Hans.
Yeah, so I think we learned quite a lot about these circular projects. It was learning by doing. We started with these projects and learned along the way quite a lot. And in order to share this knowledge amongst our colleagues, but also for wider audience, we decided to make a book called Lessons in Circularity. And the book itself is, I think it is a circular product also, because of course we used recycled paper, but we also used a specific typeset for the letters that use as little ink as possible. And for the cover of the book, we used old drawings of a project of us. So each individual book is different. So because it is a different cut from a drawing. And we updated the book with a handbook now for very specific information. How do you actually design a circular building? How do you engineer it? How do you make technical details with it? And currently being printed is now a Korean English edition of the book Lessons in Circularity, being printed at the moment in Korea. So we like to share our knowledge about circularity because we understand that it is very handy and also necessary that everybody knows about it and knows how to act and to design to make a circular building. So thank you very much for your attentions, and we are very open for any questions at the moment.
Yes, thank you so much, Hans and Camilla. I have to tell to our audience that unfortunately Hans has to go in about 15 minutes. And Camilla, by the way, will you stay or you also have to go?
No, I also need to leave. So
Okay, you
sorry.
both have to leave. So I would urge everybody to put your questions now to the Q&A if you have them specifically to address to Hans and Camilla. But I will start from mine because you have shared such a wonderful reuse and whatever circular design project that I cannot really I cannot really stop from not asking a question from my side. There was a especially interesting one about the railway. So old wagons, old trains that you tried to reincorporate into built environment. And now you have absolutely beautifully made the facade of the bicycle parking from the old windows, which were taken out of the wagons. And I'm just wondering what is happening to the wagons themselves, because now they are standing without windows. And how is it going? And was there any idea to reuse the wagons themselves, including the windows, so to make them as, I don't know, street cafe or I don't know, maybe some hipster spot with coffee, etc. Maybe somewhere in the pipe. I don't know. And just wondering, were you considering reusing them as a whole system? But I can imagine they are very heavy, so it's a lot of metal. It's very heavy thing. So you cannot really say they are modular, but just interesting.
Yeah, we were looking specifically for this typical project for reusing materials from trains, and the windows came in very handy for us. I know of projects where a complete wagon is indeed reused as a cafe. In the west of Amsterdam, that's happened. But in our case, we only used train windows, and we were assured by the railway company that almost all the other parts of the train were also reused. And a lot of the parts we reused for new trains, actually. And the other parts they sold to different companies, and we were able to work with these train windows.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. You mentioned recycled concrete in the high rise you presented with the CLT on top.
Yeah.
Is it also the cement paste that you have reused, or it's more like aggregates and you are still using virgin cement for the concrete mixture?
Yeah, the first point is apologies for using concrete at all, but it is almost impossible not to do that for a
Yeah, yeah,
120-meter high
yeah.
building. So of course we first had discussions with structural engineer and the client. Can we minimize it? And then yes, we use aggregates. We use the right type of cement. We use the Freement, which is a reconstituted cement. We do everything, but we also follow recent technical developments. I saw on social media yesterday that there's going to be built a plant in Amsterdam for low carbon cement. So there are technical chemical developments for cement, which means that the CO2 footprint of cement will be very small, or in the future, hopefully even neutral. So I think, yes, timber is absolutely preferred material, but I think you also have to be realistic. For a lot of options, concrete is really a very good solution. It is, I think it's going to stay in the building industry, and therefore I find these technical developments totally interesting.
Yes, they are indeed. There are some questions from the audience, and let me start from a simple one. If it's possible to get your book somewhere, and I know there is a link to a digital copy, right? It's like a free
Yes,
version.
yes. Yeah, very good question. Sorry, I didn't mention it, but indeed, we we had a quite a small batch of books, but they're all sold out, unfortunately. But indeed, on our website, www.cie.nl, you have to go to circularity, and there you can find the download of the book as a PDF, and that's
Yeah.
available for free.
I actually, I don't know if you would allow to do that, but I would consider also sending it to all registered participants as an attachment together with the recording of this webinar.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yes, thank you. Let's go for maybe one more, and then we pass the floor to Sasha. Okay, this is a sweet one, also an easy one. No, let's leave that for Sasha.
Whatever you
Uh,
want.
if you use some recycled material like for the bicycle park column, is it possible to get a building permission? And yeah, of course, I can imagine it's possible, but this question unfolds a little bit wider topic of regulations and safety norms in construction when it comes to secondary materials. What
Yeah,
would your
Good
yeah.
question.
what would be your
It
comment?
is it is a really good question, and to be honest, sometimes it is totally a killer in a project where you don't have where you can't show the certificates to to the contractor or so. But in this special case, the client found it interesting enough to take that responsibility. And also Rails has a technical performance. I mean, for structural engineer, he complained a bit that these Rails are a bit too weak, but it has a technical performance with which he can calculate. So for the structural engineer, it was no big deal, basically. And the client thought it was interesting enough to take responsibility of the performance of these concretes, of these columns. Sorry.
Yes.
So and that's not always the case, especially not with big projects. And yeah, what can you do as an architect? Always propose it. Advise the client to do it. Try to get good friends with with the contractor so that he's more positive, has a more positive mindset. You do whatever you can. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And
Yeah.
I think this is a question of timing. And in 10 years or so, or in a couple of years, we we, as parties in the building process, we are much more used to it and don't see it as risks anymore, but as possibilities.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Hans. I cannot really stop myself from asking this very short one. It just appears. What was the highest circularity index that you managed to achieve?
Yeah, the circularity index that was incorporated in our presentation, to my opinion, but maybe Sasha, you think differently, but to my opinion, it is actually quite recent that it is clear that MPG is the one. So the Nijmegen project, the 120-meter high tower, we need to meet the requirement of 0.5. It is a bit complicated. The lower the number is, the better, because it is a kind of
Price.
Yeah, it is. The factor is a kind of price, and the lower the price, which is kind of environmental cost or so, or the lower it is, the better. So 0.5 is for a project like that quite a challenge. But currently we're doing a tender where we have to meet 0.38. So that's even more strict. And it sounds like, 0.12, what's the problem? But that is a big step. So these are the kind of requirements that we are working with, because the MPG is a requirement that you have to meet, and is going to be put by the government stricter almost each year. So a couple of years ago, it was a kind of no-brainer to meet these targets, but now it's getting more and more tough, and that's actually really a good thing.
Good.
So that's the kind of situation of the circularity, quantifying circularity.
Okay, maybe with that in mind, we can give a hint to our government to have this kind of index introduced into the legislation for the developers for, I don't know, maybe in 5 or 10 years, realistically. Hans, Camilla, I'm super grateful for your participation. If more questions come, I will let you know. Let's see if you can answer. Have a nice day, and we move on to Sasha. I'm happy to give the floor to Sasha Flattel from Space and Matter, and I personally was also amazed by their initiatives from bottom to up when I was walking in Amsterdam and the Kuifel, also some skips. And yeah, Sasha, please, the floor is yours.
Hello. First of all, thanks for this invitation. It's really great. I'm really honored to share a bit of my ideas and projects we did the last 15 years. I have to already excuse myself because I'm a bit sick. So my voice sometimes is maybe a bit weird. So excuse me for that, please. I also will share my screen. So as you already asked me, I think in the talk before, what kind of projects I should show, what not. I decided also to show like glimpses of what we did in the last 15 years. Maybe also the projects which are not so, which you cannot project immediately on your situation. But I think it's very important to tell a bit the story of where we come from, basically. So Space and Matter is a company which we started 15 years ago in Amsterdam. We're around 20 to 30 people. I'm one of the co-founders. I have two more, Cheered and Martijn. And what we do is like, I think we needed 15 years to really figure out what we do. We were trained as architects, and we do, of course, design. So we really focus on architecture, urban planning, and spatial design in the broader sense. But we were also rethinking from the very beginning. So 15 years ago, we already thought, look, the way buildings are being built are not really sustainable. That was basically a time when we were in a very terrible economic crisis. It was 2008, 2009. A lot of people lost their jobs. There was not a lot of work. So we really had to rethink the system. We tried, there's something wrong about the system. It really doesn't work like that. So we did a lot of research, a lot of concept development, came up with a lot of new ideas. And we always thought that, yeah, we can talk a lot about our ideas, but we really prefer acting. So we just initiate. So next to Space and Matter, we developed our project development firm also. So we develop our own projects often. So since 15 years, we really try to scale up also the circular approach. I show you soon like one of the first projects in the Netherlands where we actually, I think we paved the way a bit for the circular economy approach together with Metabolic. But we also figured out that, and I see that also in the discussion now, that the circularity aspects, as discussed, they really need the right client and the right investor in order to go for that ambitious sustainability approach. So in a way, we figured out it's often the technical, maybe material discussion we are having. And we did the same also. So we tried in all the projects we did, like we tried to close the loops also in the system design between water, waste and resources, the food and biodiversity systems. And that doesn't always work in projects. So depending really on the client, you're very dependent as an architect on the client, right? Who has this initiative and what is the goal? And now I think after 15 years, you see also what Hans described. There are slowly more and more clients which want to go and want to do this extra mile, but there's a lot of challenges also. One of them is, for example, if you win a tender and you say you make this whole project circular, you don't know at the moment when you realize it if you have this materials available you're looking for. So you usually, when you really want to go fully circular, then you need trains, you need all demolished buildings and windows and all these resources, and where do you store them, right? So you need quite an infrastructure about material, secondhand material, basically. That's something very tricky, and then that's also the reason when you don't have this infrastructure really for the materials, it's very difficult to design with them because they are just not available. So you have to design with the unknown, and that's what we often also do in our projects. From the very beginning, we embrace the circularity principles, but also the idea of working together with communities. And a couple of years ago, when Kate Raworth published her book about the circular economy, that was pretty much describing, I think, our mission way better than the circular economy, because it describes beautiful, like this ecological ceiling, where we really talk about climate change, also CO2 reduction, which is often like basically, or sustainability or circularity is often narrowed down to that aspect. But we also see that evenly important is this social foundation. So we see, and also we were part of this exercises and projects in the last 15 years, that the most circular projects we did was often for the people who really can afford it also, who have the time, who have the means. If you really want to scale up and you want to make it accessible for everyone, you should not forget the social foundation. So basically, help people, the broad masses, to give them tools also to reach the same circularity goals, or not over or extend the ecological ceiling of the planet. That I think that narrative, this donut narrative, fits way more into what we did the last 15 years. We were always helping communities and groups of people to develop their own projects, and we help them in process design, in urban planning and architecture, but also with the concepting of their ideas. So 2 years ago, we changed our mission into that we really want to realize 1 million square meters within the donut, an equally amount also of new nature next to that, because we know that there's a high biodiversity loss in the world. Then, of course, like we focus a lot on architecture and on the buildings, but we figured out that the neighborhood scale, which is slightly bigger than, of course, a little project, is way more interesting in terms of synergy between these different systems, energy systems, mobility systems, material systems. So the scale of neighborhoods give us really the opportunity to exercise a truly system change in area development or in city development. And when you have area development, and this, how it usually goes is that all these different departments, they have their own ambition, right? Like there's like this nature department who wants to create a little bit more nature. The sustainability department wants that. Then the financial department wants a bit more money. And what works then in a tender, for example, they're always competing, even if it's great ideas, but they compete with each other. And it's very difficult to get this whole like system change through this holistic approach. So what we then started is like this neighborhood stack, where we strongly believe that when you do this integrated area development or a new vision for a change, you have to address all these aspects at the same time. One of the most important parts is the lower three, basically, what you see here, because the upper ones, I think architects are very, very familiar with, right? Like maybe like the resources, what we just discussed and heard also from Hans, and the built environment and the architecture, the design. But the core of if we build circular and if we build sustainable are the lower three. And it's the question like who owns the land, who will own the buildings also, who will finance it, and what is the governance model of this whole area. If these three aspects are not right, then I think it's very difficult to scale up circularity aspects, because the values of people who usually develop, they're more financially driven, often financially driven. It's like it's very extractive, these models, right? You come, you develop, you sell, and you go. But we believe strongly in a community comes, forms an organization, develops themselves, and stays. And in that sense, you really see that the outcome is that the circularity and sustainability ambitions, they're way higher than in a traditional form. So we work a lot with communities. We embrace communities, their ideas, their dreams, and we do a lot of stakeholder engagement, like of future people who will live, work, or just use these places. Often done by workshops, design workshops, but also a lot listening to what people need. The building typology doesn't matter at the end. It can be like what I show you soon, like a floating neighborhood, an urban block, a high rise, a row, whatever. It's like it's the same principles we approach and we project to all these projects. So now I would like to show you a couple of them. So there's a couple of them, and a lot also in like a building process now. So this is Amsterdam, and then this little white surrounded area. It's like the Barkstad Ham is like a neighborhood in Amsterdam North. And here with this end taken, this is like Space and Matter offices like in the middle of it. And I just quickly want to show you what we did in the last 15 years. So this was a project like from 14 years ago. It was like an incubator in Amsterdam North where we reused old houseboats, made this beautiful new park, like this purifying park, which takes with filter remediation, like all the pollution out of the ground. And we recycled like a lot of materials here. A lot of innovation went into this. And this project became, I mean, it's people say like, you might say it's very small. It's not really relevant. And at the beginning, we were really also just experimenting with this, and it got a lot of attention. So all of a sudden, like all over the world, a lot of people came, a lot of people wanted to know about it. And that was basically the circular approach. But it was really a donut project because it was bottom up, done with the community. They built themselves all the technology, and we learned from that. And not only us, I think this project was also important. It was a showcase. And I think this is one advice I can give you. Don't wait for like this, a huge new project. It's just showcase your ideas. Like also the younger architects, just make stuff, show what you mean. If it gets tangible, people understand. What happened here after we did this project, the municipality and this whole, a lot of companies from this neighborhood, they basically embraced the circular principles and made this manifest for circularity for the whole neighborhood. So all of a sudden, all the buildings, all the projects should be built and developed accordingly. we learned already for the next project, and very quickly, this is also not something you would do now necessarily at your place, but this is a project also set up by a community, like a couple of friends who just had the dream to make the most sustainable neighborhood in Europe. And we supported them with the design, with the concepting, and so on. What's interesting of this project is it has like a decentralized sanitation system. So basically, what we managed here is that this black water from the toilets will be with vacuum pumps all comes to this biorefinery, and we produce then biogas from that. Talking about infrastructure, I think this could be very interesting also maybe to experiment with these options, because it's decentralized. You don't need huge infrastructure in order to already operate some sanitation systems. The other thing is also local smart grid, what we did in this project. So we just connected to the infrastructure and electricity from the net, but basically the system is almost self-sufficient. So we have solar panels on the roof and batteries in the bottom of these floating houses, and they're all connected with a smart grid. So when the house, you see that here, the greenhouses they produce, and the red houses they consume, and they work amongst each other with this infrastructure. So basically, that's also very interesting for the Netherlands, because if all the cities want to go all electric, then this tremendous energy flood which comes into the net, the infrastructure cannot cope with, basically. So again, like this decentralized energy system works really great, also on neighborhood level. Then another project I would like to show you, like from this very small project we did 14, 15 years ago, we really scaled up all these ideas and experiments. It's like a tender we won last year, which is really big. It's about 360 residential units, but another 12,000 square meter makerspace. And this whole project was also set up such with very high circularity ambitions, but also very high social ambitions. So what we did here is we basically tried to really activate the community in our neighborhood with a lot of companies to just help us like making this project. So we asked a lot of people and other companies also to basically rent a place in the future, or buy even a place in the future, especially in the plinth. So we have like here in the ground level, like a lot of maker industry from north, so from our neighborhood. This is, for example, a company which recycles bikes, for example. So we wanted to build this very big hub for all companies which are very like-minded to us. It was even for metabolic and spectral, like other companies we work often with. They wanted to be our neighbors here. Because we thought, like, if we work all together on this place, then we can also like have a lot of synergy between the companies. Excuse me. Then on top, of course, there's like residential. What we also here try to do is like we in this other, so an urban block typology, we wanted to add a lot of more collective functions. So this is all Dutch, as you see, but you can read already a bit. So a fitness room, a game room, like a library, some collective living room, kitchen, laundry room. So we really wanted to build this community around these places to not be it such a like individualistic place. And we added also like a corridor in the inside of these buildings, like in order for people next to the elevators to move more. So make it way more healthier for people to just not always take the elevator, but move and go the stairs, but also meet your neighbors. So this is really like a place where you can also hang out and just meet and communicate with your neighbors. Then key is, I think, often in these projects, like a rich diversity of apartments, that you not focus only on one target group, always like the four family household, for example, but really rich diversity, because demographics change all the time, and you want to attract or reassemble a big part of the society. And that not only for the size of the apartments, but also for the cost of the apartment. And then, when we entered this tender, we knew already that if we win it, and we won it, but if we will win it, then probably the building construction site will be starting in 2.5 to 3 years. But we don't know the materials yet, which we will find. So we did in the tender, we said also the whole facade material, we said we don't know yet. So usually you have to really define it. But in this tender, we said we don't know yet. We will decide at the moment when we will build, what we can find. One idea was also to reuse the facade of the old National Bank here in Amsterdam. But we don't know, like, if it takes longer and then the material isn't there anymore. This is like a bit the difficulties in circular approaches, right? You have to, you cannot store material for 3 years. It's really unaffordable. On top of that, we used also for the base, for the ground floor, concrete, which was half recycled and half new, this concrete. But on top, for all the apartments, we wanted to use a building system based on wood from another company, Finch. It's a very modular system. And here, this is, I think, interesting also what we discussed before. So you see here a bit our MPG is under the 3, so which was really a high score. So you see in the right diagram, this material flow diagram, the origin. So the renew builds, you see this is here new bar on the top left of this diagram, and secondary materials and primary materials. And you see that the concrete, so the green part, goes really like almost 50-50 from secondary and primary. We also wanted to have our own food production in this building, so we invited this vertical farm company into the project also, and they will also place a couple of their food production containers in it. Then another building project I wanted to show you. This is also a render of a tender we won, which will be realized or start building this year. And we call it the Circular City House. That the place is a very unique place in Amsterdam East. There was in the past a very beautiful old coffee house, a cafe, where the neighborhood made a lot of use of that. So everyone knew this place, and everyone was attached to this place. Everyone had a story about this place. And you see already on the left part, this triangular was the plot where the municipality, because it's municipal ground, they wanted to have here a mixed-use building with a lot of office space, a restaurant there, and more program up to the party which would submit. And we submitted here with Space Matter, so with our architecture firm, but also with our development part company, which is Common City, and we won that together. And our approach was here that we don't demolish this cafe, but we reuse it or recycle it basically, or embed it in the new concept. So first of all, we said this under this green structure on the left was supposed to be the restaurant, and then on top of it there should be a we space for the neighborhood, for a lot of companies and people who live there, which make use of this cafe then in a different way. So we want to cut open this cafe and really have this podium there on this level. And on top, we built timber frame structure and office spaces. And you see here, very beautiful on the right, how the old cafe is integrated. And that was the reason also why the neighborhood voted for us, and also the politicians in the city. They really liked this approach that we dealt with it so gently with this heritage of this old cafe, where a lot of people were attached to. Here you see it a bit better. And of course, we're in Amsterdam, so it's at the water. It's a very nice location. So we also have these buildings which we didn't design, but they came along some time ago, and that was an old office from the municipality. And again, they tendered this place for like revamping this place from an office place to residential. And what we did is like you see, this has like 3 floors. We topped it up with 1 floor and redid the facade also and added a balcony. So we also strongly believe in the transformation of existing. And it's always the question, like sometimes you see like it's very interesting that if you have such a building, then for example, you see here on the left side, the courtyard basically. In a new building, you would never do that, like have this huge courtyard. But here it was a given. And then we added these staircases also in order for people to connect way better. But that's also so interesting that if you have to transform an old building into something new, you often have like these possibilities architecturally wise, also spatially wise, that makes the building very interesting, which you wouldn't do and couldn't afford when if it would be a new to build building. Here also we had a like very high diversity of different apartments that attracted very different group of people. This is a project we are doing now in Amersfoort, also in the Netherlands, which is like completely from CLT. So it's really in the city, but really like on the periphery of the city, so very green, this area. And we developed here like very different types and typologies also of housing. There's even social housing in here in this project. And this is now being built, as you can see. And most of the constructions here, they're from COT, so cross-laminated timber. So we also experiment a lot with different types of circularity. So on one hand, and that always depends on the project, right? Like as Hans already said, you often have to see what the possibilities of a project are and then play with them. You see the different typologies of these buildings we're doing. And then, I mean, the advantage of this cross-laminated timber is, of course, the how fast the assembly of these buildings are. So it's really like the raw building is just set up within 2 weeks, and then you see already everything. This is the social housing part. Yeah, and as I mentioned already, community is really important to us. We really embrace a lot of these community buildings where often like yep, again like what I said, like circularity is always like, or the discussion about circularity is very technical. But if you combine it with the social part, then you often succeed more in also the circularity part, and this more technical part. And this is something very obvious to us, that if you work with a group of people who approach us and want to build this huge building, these people, they are not into profit optimization. They're really into quality, health, and high circularity and sustainability ambitions. So if you help communities in order to build like a new place, then you can experiment a lot more with circularity aspects. And they often also, what we see, take more risks in terms of how far do they want to go with like secondary materials and so on. This was the project we did for them, Violence, a lot of like design processes and design workshops with them. What they also wanted, they wanted a collective space on the roof, like a greenhouse. This is now the latest photo from some time ago. And they also have like this social spaces here on these galleries to hang out. I also want to show you, because I talked at the beginning, so firm about the governance and ownership models. That's something that architects are not usually addressing these things, but I think that will come more and more. And as I said, like when I strongly believe that if the ownership model of a place or of land and therefore also the governance model is set right, then we can reach way higher circularity goals. And of course, there's a lot, like in the Netherlands, like it's really fast forward now. It's like there's a lot of, the government does a lot, but so the question is, what can you do at places where you don't have that experience or the infrastructure yet, right? I really think that people can make their own environment way better often. They need, of course, professionals, but then the values are set right. So I would like to introduce you also to another project, or more like a form of ownership, which is the community land trust. It's also called CLT, not to mix with cross-laminated timber. So the community land trust model comes from the US. We are trying to implementing that now at several places in the Netherlands. It basically says that, I can show it here, that you have like a collective governance model where not only the government, for example, decides like of a place what will happen. It's really like this tripartite of, on the one hand, the people who eventually will use this area and live there. This is like the residents or the tenants. Then the people from the neighborhood which surrounds this place, and also the public interest, so the government, for example. But these three parties, they have the same saying about a place which will be developed. And the first thing what happens basically is like you organize this organization like a community land trust of an area, and you organize like these three parties, and then you give them land. So the land will be owned by this organization. What they do then is they together make a manifest and they write down the values of their place. And as we see now, like in the Netherlands, but all over Europe, that there's a shortage of affordable housing, for example. There is a lack of circularity. So these ambitions, they can be really imprinted in this manifest, more or less. And then will be also developed such. So you can have an energy cooperative, for example, social housing, local shops, and everything what the city needs there. But the governance model helps to also protect these goals, not for the first or second generation, but for the next 7, 8 generations which will come. So there is this idea of when you design, develop, and construct it, then people move out, for example, or the next generation comes, that these houses stay affordable, because there will be an anti-speculation rules in this area. So this model is like very successful in the US. It also came to Belgium, to the UK. We try to get it into the Netherlands now. It's very promising in order to get all the basically the affordability and the sustainability ambitions like right at this plot. Yeah, this is what I said already. I skipped that. And then the last thing I would like to share with you is we experiment a lot. So we also started a new company, Boom Builds, which is basically a company for bio-based construction materials, or bio-based building system. And we see really strongly that a lot of developers already, they want to build bio-based, but they don't know how to do it. They often go to an architect which is not very experienced in bio-based buildings. Then they go to building companies which have their building system, so they have to learn their building system. And then it takes a long process, and after some while they figured out, oh, damn, I just chose the wrong building system for my project. It's not a fit. So we see like a lot of these great ambitions, they strand. So and after that, we started this company, Boom, and we turned it around. So what we did is like there is like a couple of these building systems for bio-based material, but also wood. And so we are all aware and know all the details of these building systems. What we did is we made a Boom studio. So we invited several architects here in the Netherlands to build basically or design with this building system, which we told them how it works. ready-mades, so buildings which you can reuse over and over and over again. And I thought like, and in times where we have to really build a lot, because the Netherlands now, we have really a shortage of housing. We have to build a lot of more residential housing. But it's often then when you build fast, all the circularity aspects are forgotten again. So I really see that every day in practice. Now we build traditional again with concrete, steel, and glass, basically. So a lot of these ambitions, they fall from the table. And we thought, what if we offer this catalog where clients can just choose and pick a building designed by great architects, which use all this building system, which we know exactly what you should do, what you shouldn't. Then you have like this big amount of buildings and this big library, which you basically can implement and it can improve. And you might say, yeah, that doesn't always fit, but we do them such that they fit in different urban configurations. So like in this grid function, for example, an urban block or more organic shapes. And on top of that, we also develop these ready-mades, like, of course, in with parametric design principles. So if you would like to change a building, then it's also easy to like change it like slightly, because like the basic structure, the basic idea is still like very coherent in this system, in this parametric model. So you have like a lot of flexibility also within that, but it should fasten up basically the production of bio-based buildings, where it's now like completely difficult to just get it through a traditional process. Yeah, so thank you very much. This was, I think I'm in time.
Yes, we are in time. That's right. Thank you, Sasha. Many thanks for your contribution. And yeah, we have just 1 minute left. I believe we will not be able to answer all the questions that are just dropping into the Q&A. But I have to, well, at least ask you one of them. Okay, there is a question about new biomaterials. Did you manage to create any new biomaterials for construction, and have you patented
No, we
it?
didn't. No, we didn't create new materials. But what we do is like we experimented with hempcrete, for example, which is a beautiful
Yes,
material.
yes,
This is really fantastic, the performances of it. And then, of course, like we use, and then it always depends a little bit, like a wooden timber construction as a base, for example, you need also there. But we don't create our own materials, but we use like the systems and the producers, for example, of bio-based materials. We use their system uploaded basically in our software, and are very aware of the do's and don'ts of their building system in order to help architects also to design the right buildings, right? We are not so much like developing our own materials, but it's like we are just because the innovation there is like so great already. It's more the difficulty is like how to implement it and on a bigger scale. And it's
yeah,
not so much in creating all the time, in our opinion, new materials.
exactly. It's a very sweet question. I cannot stand from asking it. I'm a fourth year architecture student working on my thesis. Could you please tell me which programs do you use for projects, especially for rendering?
Um, all of it, a lot. So it's just what we often do is like depends on like internally we have like a lot of packages basically, but we do now a lot in Revit, just purely Revit also, and we outsource renders also. So the renders are not always done by the companies anymore. So it's a very given thing. So a lot of architecture firms, so we do the basic, I mean the construction, the building and the design, everything internally. And then really the image making is often outsourced.
Wow. And the last one, probably, I have to respect the time of all the participants and also yours, Sasha. What is the difference between circular architecture and sustainable architecture? A very interesting thing, philosophical one. I have my own opinion, but please, you are the speaker today.
Yeah, I think it's so what Hans already mentioned, right? I think sustainability is like a broader sense. I think it also like there's always like this layer of new ways of describing what sustainability is. And I think that circularity is now, it brings like a lot more the aspects of reusing, of closed circles, closed cycles in the discussion, and even not everyone is like seeing that also, but originally also the social aspect plays an important role in circularity, which is not often discussed, right? So that's why I really bring in the donut, because it beautifully brings also like these two, or not even two aspects, like a really wide range of aspects. I personally think is the same with labels. Like we see this MPG and all these labels. Also, it's very difficult to find um, the one and right answer for what you should go for. What we really found is that within the donut, all the other fits. So like this big mega umbrella narrative fits in my opinion how we see it under the donut, and all the other aspects are part of it.
Yes, I totally agree. And if I may add from my side, I think that indeed all these 17 sustainability goals, they are just too broad, and it's more like about some bright future that we are heading to. Whereas circularity and the donut is more about the toolbox. It's about the means and tools of how to get there. So
Yeah,
while sustainability is always something unknown, undefined, and always, well, often touching some issues which are not really into circularity, like gender equality or some human rights or LGBT, etc., etc. This is not
yeah,
something that circularity is tackling. But Donut indeed has put all this, well, not all those aspects, but some of main those aspects into the framework of planetary boundaries. And basically,
yeah,
what we have in the outer bound is the planetary boundaries, and what we have in the inner bound is the minimum social standards that we have to ensure for all of us. And I support
yeah.
you totally that, yeah.
And on top of that, I think in order to reach these goals within the donut, you have to be really regenerative, right? Sustaining is not enough, right? Because it's just too late for that. So if it's not regenerative, you don't reach the goals which we have to reach, basically.
Yes, that's very important correction. Sasha, please get well soon. I'm very thankful for
Thanks.
your involvement today, being a bit sick, and thank you so much for your wonderful slides and for your values that you're carrying in the architecture and design domain. Guys, thank you so much for participating, and we will send you the recording and also the book which was mentioned. By the way, Sasha, is this Boom book also available online or not?
No, not yet.
No,
No, not
not
yet.
yet. Okay, but then we will come back to that maybe later. Thank you
Yes.
so much, guys. Have a nice evening.
Thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much. Bye-bye. Bye.